Mission Workshop of the City of St. Pete Beach. Today is Tuesday, March 26, 2024. It is 4 p.m. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Vice Mayor Lorenzen.
Here.
Commissioner Marriott.
Here.
Commissioner Filtz.
Here.
Commissioner Resnicki.
Here.
Mayor Petrilla.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Thank you. All right, I think Renee, you're up.
Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to meet you in person. I know we've talked on the phone. I'm Renee Norlock with Norlock & Associates. Our base is in Tallahassee, and we've enjoyed working on this project with you. We look forward to moving forward some things, hopefully tonight. And what I'm here for today is to talk with you a little bit about the candidates that we have for this position, kind of where we are in the process, and give you some details, answer some questions for you about candidates, and we've made some recommendations of folks I'd like to talk to you in detail about. That said, I think we've had probably close to 100 applicants for this position. I'll tell you that I've been doing this for 25 years, and that hasn't happened in a very, 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 very long time. Those numbers are just not, so, and I get it. I understand why people would want to come to beautiful St. Pete Beach. That said, we did go through every one of them and really assess candidates more so based on what our conversations were with all of you to begin with, and really tried to find the folks that we felt like brought what you were looking for. We didn't want to bring you all the same kinds of candidates. We wanted some diversity in the group of experience and where they come from and how they got to this point and even why they're interested. So I have 5 candidates in particular that I'm going to talk to you about tonight. Give you some details behind what's on the resume. I know it's really, really hard to know what you've got when you're looking at it on paper. But I have talked with these people individually. Some of these folks I've worked with before, so I know them, I know their character, I know their reputation. I may have even recommended them somewhere in the past 25 years and had the opportunity to talk to some of the references at some point, and that does carry a lot of weight. So I just want you to know that where we're at now is just finding out more about these folks. We have some yardage to go here. We are scheduled to move forward. We have some dates on the calendar, tentative dates on the calendar in April to do an on-site interview process, and we'll talk about that a little more in detail of what that's going to look like, what the expectations are for those dates. And then in addition to that, we still have to do background checks on candidates. We still have to do reference checks on candidates. We don't dig into their background too deeply at this point in the process. We just have you talk with them, have you learn something about them, and determine who you're most interested in, narrow it down to either a smaller number or a single person, and then that's when we really get into their business and make sure everything that you need to know is in place, and that you have the information you need to make a final decision on the city manager. So, and I'm going to apologize now for my voice. I live in Tallahassee, and it's springtime there, and this is pollen-related whatever, so I apologize. I don't know if, I hope, if you did not get a document from us, a PDF document that has resumes in it of the folks that we recommend, I do have hard copies here if anybody needs one. But I'm basically going to go through this booklet with you. I mentioned that we had almost 100 candidates. That list of folks who applied are in the back of this book. It's 4 or 5 pages long. I think there's probably 94 total. We also did send out a link to a Dropbox. If anyone wanted to look at applications, you had access to that, I understand, and could look at those on your own. Some people like to go through all of them, and that's fine. That's a lot to go through, but we just wanted to make sure you had access if you had any questions about anyone. I will tell you there are folks on this list that at first glance you may think, well, why isn't that person on there? I may know something about them. I may know something about their history or their past. If I know that there's a strong red flag on a candidate for some reason, I will make a determination that we need to not have a conversation about them. I will tell you if a candidate has ever sued their employer, That's, in my industry, that's a big no-go. There's hope that you can work it out some other way if there's a problem and not go to that extent. So that's just an example of something that I might have said, we're not going to go there. So that's it. I'm just going to go down the list of candidates. I'm going to go one at a time if you're okay with this and just tell you a little bit about each of these candidates, probably not everything that you want to know, but what I'd like to do is run through them so then we have time for you to go back to candidates or ask supplemental questions about anybody along the way. We don't have a magic number that we're trying to get to. There's no, I didn't say I want to recommend 5 candidates. I didn't do that. Instead, I looked through the candidates and determined which ones I thought rose to the level of professionalism and could bring some different skill sets to you to consider. And we ended up with 5 candidates on this list. This is my list. It's a recommendation. You don't have to take my recommendation. You can tweak it, you can take it, or you can, say, let's go with these 5, and if we don't like these 5, then let's bring another set in and talk with them too. I think if you do, in fact, bring these 5 in, you're going to have a nice assortment of candidates that bring a different perspective on city management and on addressing the needs of St. Pete Beach going forward. So that's it. I'm going to jump right in. Mr. Glenn Adams. Glenn has not been in city management for a lot of years, but he has been in the public sector. He is a military person, a retired military person. And I would say his most considerable experience that caught my eye was when he was chief of staff at the White Sands Missile Range in White Sands, New Mexico. This is a huge base. It's like a city is what it's like, and he was in charge of what went on there. There's a lot of different dynamics that went on there. He did retire, and he got a job at Santa Fe, Texas for a couple of years. Unfortunately, his first stint as a city manager was during the COVID years, and that was a tough time to become a city manager and take your first city manager role. Also, right as he got there, right around the time he got there, there was a horrible incident in Santa Fe where there was a shooting at a high school there. I think some people don't even know about that. I mean, it was a very serious event. So he walked into a situation where there was just a lot of things that were certainly unexpected. And he's a good manager. He's a very personable person, very likable person. He just is able to connect with the community. He just draws people in. And I think as far as being able to connect with your community, I think he would do a great job. He does have some engineering type background in some of his roles that he had in the military, and I think that's a valuable asset to have for any manager, to tell you the truth, because you always have capital improvement projects that are coming up or that are out there on the horizon, and it's always good to have a trained eye at the helm when you have that kind of work going on. What he decided to do after Santa Fe is do interim roles. He likes that. He said he likes to be able to go in and assess what is going on in the community, and he has the knack to do that. He's very good at reading what is happening in a community, what is needed in the community, and he knows how, he's a leader. He knows how to get people on board, on the same page, moving forward together as a unit, if you will. I will just tell you, some people get a little nervous if someone's military experience, that they're going to come in and be barking orders and all that stuff. I promise you that he is not that military person. And honestly, I'm pro-military for a lot of reasons, basically because of the training that you get and the discipline that you get. But when I'm looking at candidates for city manager roles that have been in the military, I need to know that they can transition into public sector and do well at it. And some can and some cannot. So I have no problems whatsoever making a recommendation about Glenn. Recently, I did talk to candidates about a lot of things, by the way. I talked about their management styles. I assessed those. I also talked to make sure we weren't worlds apart, right? We couldn't get there, I talked to them about commitment, coming here. I let everybody know they need to come to stay for a while. This isn't a 2-year stint, anybody coming here. I know those things are beyond everybody's control, but the intent should be there's a lot of work to be done. It's going to take a while to do it. So, and also I talked about them being a part of this community, right? Not on the other side of the state, sometimes here or what have you, but here. There were a lot of things that I talked about on the front end to make sure that it was a good fit for what this community needs and how this community functions, the need for somebody to come and be part of the community. That said, when I talked to him about salary, he said that he's done his research, as have all of our candidates, and they know it's rather expensive to live in St. Pete Beach, which we all know that, right? But he said he did want to be at least around $215 to consider this position. He does have friends that live down in this area. I imagine probably some military folks in and around the area that he has come down and interacted with. So he has been here. He's familiar with the beach. I suspect some of these candidates have probably been roaming around here in the last 30 days or so. Maybe they've been sitting in on your meetings, I don't know. But I would expect that that would be the case. So he's being very picky about where he goes next. He's had some offers, but he's looking for a board. He's looking for a board that is cohesive. He's watched your meetings. He felt comfortable. I mean, outside of it being a beautiful city and everybody wants to come here, he wants to know who he's going to be working for. So he's done his research, and he's very choosy about that, because there are a lot of jobs now where there's just a lot going on amongst the board. They're very divided. You know, it's a very divisive environment. Some of them are very toxic environment. You know, you can find them on the internet, meetings all day long about those things. But he's being very particular about where he will come, because he wants to come, he wants to stay, and he wants it to be a good working relationship. The next candidate, and I hope I'm going in alphabetical order here, is Kevin Cowper. Kevin is a very solid city manager. He has a planning background. He started in planning. That's a plus, in my opinion. But also, everywhere he's gone, he's been tasked, he's been charged with doing something in that community, and he has stepped up every time. He was in Auburn as an assistant city manager after doing some other work as a planning director and planning role in the Northwest Florida area, including Pensacola. And when he got in Auburn was a college town. That was it. It was just the college. That's why it existed. But when he was there as assistant city manager, the charge was to build the city of Auburn, to build it up, to make it a destination place for people, to create a main street, to create businesses, to create an experience, not just for students, but for others too. And he was very successful at doing that. I don't know if any of you have been to Auburn lately, but it's worth going, and it's pretty impressive what took place there, and that was on his watch. He was very involved in making that happen. Just like now, he's gone from Auburn to Dothan as his first city manager role. I don't know if any of you have been to Dothan before, but Dothan is a good-sized city in Alabama, South Alabama. Been there a long time, about the same size for a long time, sort of the same economy, the same things going on there for decades now. And he was charged with doing something different in Dothan and putting it on the map. And again, some people would say, well, it's Auburn and that's Dothan. I'm just saying he has the ability to come into a community and understand what's going on and how to move it forward, and take whatever charge is given to him to make that happen. Whether it's connecting with the community, which he's been able to do that in Dothan, and there's been a lot going on in Dothan. I have a long list of accomplishments for this guy in Dothan, which is pretty amazing to me. And if you're familiar with Dothan, it'd be pretty amazing to you too. But he really has done some exceptional things there. So I'm going to tell you, this is your candidate that he's a great city manager, got a very soft, personal style to him, very approachable, very pleasant, a bit of a dry sense of humor, very likable guy, smart as the day is long. And I'm not taking away from anybody else on here, I'm just telling you. But this is the guy who also, if you are inclined to look long-term, this is what I have noticed about Kevin is he has the ability to look at the 2050 vision for your community, not just the 2030 or the 2040. And not a lot of people, not a lot of managers in general, but certainly not a lot of planning directors or planning people have that really long-term vision. So I will just leave it at that, but that's certainly something, if you interview him, I'm sure it will come up. It's about sustainability for your community. It's about what do you want it to look like? How do you want it to look? How do we figure that out with the community to forecast 2050 for this city? And he's the person who can systematically walk you through every step of that. And I think that's a really valuable skill set amongst city managers that I have worked with. Let's see if I talked with him about salary. I think he was looking around the 225 range, if I recall. He would be coming here to stay here. It would be him and his wife. All his kids are grown and moved on and doing their things all over the country. Michael Maxwell, I think, is our next candidate. I have never worked with Michael before. I've never met Michael before. Apparently, his father used to be a city manager up in Tallahassee, Jerry Maxwell, which was interesting. I'm sorry, I skipped over. Let me go with Jim Harriet here. Jim is kind of a different candidate also. I'm not purposely finding people who have planning backgrounds or engineering backgrounds, but it seems like we've got a couple here that do. Jim Harriet used to be in Sarasota County for a long time. He served under Jim Lay there for Jim hired him, served under Jim Lay there for many, many years. Jim actually started a department there Jim Lay, the county manager, actually started a new department there and put Jim Harriet in charge of that department. And it was basically handling capital improvements project. He's an engineering guy, and capital improvements is second nature to him. As a matter of fact, I have a list. He sent me a list yesterday of some of his projects that he has worked on. I will be glad to share that with all of you. I think I have copies for all of you, but right now he's working on the City of Jacksonville Beach Trails Master Plan with the consulting firm that he's with. Before that, he did the Siesta Beach renovation project in Siesta Key, Siesta Village Streetscape, Village Parking District, just loads of projects in and around Sarasota, that the Turtle Beach renourishment for Lido Key, all kinds of beach work and beach-related work. Because again, I was interested in somebody that would know how to help you in the event of either a hurricane or with a seawall or with other beach-related challenges that that you have. And so he did share that list with me, and like I said, I'll share it with you too if you'd like. He would like to be around the 225 range also in order to consider this position. And his most recent job prior to the consulting role was Alachua County Assistant County Manager. I joked that Jim was the county manager there, and maybe Michelle Lieberman wouldn't appreciate me saying that, but Michelle was the county attorney in Alachua, and she was tapped to be their county manager. And she'd never been a county manager or city manager anywhere ever before. She hired Jim to be her assistant because she knew Jim was solid, and he came highly recommended to her. And he basically came in and became the assistant county manager, the de facto county manager, I guess, and basically walked Michelle through her first several years as county manager there. So I am comfortable with his skills at this level of being a city manager, being a county manager. This is coming back home for him. He went to high school in Naples and grew up in Naples. And this is him moving back to this part of the state. He actually went, I was sharing earlier, he actually went to Alachua County because he had 3 kids who were about to go to college. And he thought that would get them at UF if he moved there. And they all went to UCF instead. So his plan backfired, and now he and his wife are mobile and want to come back to what he calls home here. I think the upside to Jim is his engineering background. Again, very pleasant person, easy to connect with people. I think he would fit in. He's very, just very personable. But at the same time, he understands things from an engineering standpoint. Now, while you're not hiring an engineer, there are engineers that, it's good to have someone in the seat that understands what your contractors are doing or not doing, quite frankly. and be able to hold them accountable. So I think that's a big plus that Jim brings to the table, is his background in civil engineering. And again, I think his management style would fit in here. I don't have any concerns about him at all. I'll tell you, there's maybe an article or two out there on candidates, I think there's one on Jim from Alachua. I've vetted these things. I've gone back and talked to the people who were involved that could tell me the rest of the story, if you will. And there's always the rest of the story, quite frankly, when it comes to newspaper articles. So I feel comfortable with these candidates, that they're not bringing any baggage to the table when they come here. Next candidate, Michael Maxwell. I was saying that I've never met Michael before. I've never worked with him before. He did an exceptional interview with me. He's been up in Clearwater, and he's no longer there. It was a mutual decision to part ways up there. However, I think what happened is there was sort of some shifting going on at the top there in the deputy roles and in the city manager roles, that he had gone into a kind of a side assignment in his most recent role with them. And I'll tell you, he was really excited about it. And this I kind of want to highlight, because this is what stood out to me. When he became the Chief Innovation Officer at Clearwater, he said it was the most fun he's had in a really long time. And I understand this because I work with cities and counties all across the nation. And every city and county is at a different stage in their evolution. And many of them have embraced innovation. And many of them are doing all kinds of really creative, great things to create a culture in the city environment that sends the message that we care about the employees, that we care about the residents, we care about the community, we care about everybody, right? And there's different ways to do that. There's different ways to impact the culture. And then when you do that, people start getting excited about it, and it just builds on, and all kinds of innovative things happen from it. And you basically change your organization for the better. And that was the decision that was made at the time that Micah was assigned to the CIO role. And it wasn't popular, because change hurts sometimes, but the city manager at the time said, burn the ships, we're doing this, we're going in. And so he felt like he had the support and the backing of leadership there, including the elected officials and others, so he just dove into it. After he got into it, some things happened with the city manager, and it was kind of the city manager's idea to do this, and so the support waned a little bit, but he tried to do what he could in that role. And new managers came in, and different dynamics. They wanted their people in certain places and all this other things, so there was just a decision that he would step down and go do his own thing, which I think he's doing. He didn't put it on here, but I think he's doing some really interesting consulting work right now. And this is his first choice as far as a next city. He did learn about, as being an assistant in Clearwater, the difference between reporting to the elected officials and being part of the decision-making process and carrying that out, versus being in an assistant role where you're just waiting for the directives, right, and you're just assisting it. And he did indicate that in his next move, he wants to go back to being in a city manager seat, that he's not interested in being assistant again. He learned a lot while he was there, and he was glad he did it. And even the CIO role, he was really glad that he did that, because that's something he's carrying forward with him. As far as salary, let me see if I have what he was interested in. When I ask people, I can't ask them what they make. I mean, I can research it. It's all public record, right? But what I typically do is just ask, what do you want to be to consider this job? And is there flexibility in that? Sometimes they tell me where they are. Other times they don't. And he just said, that he was flexible as far as salary. And mind you, everybody has looked up what you paid your last manager and kind of what the package was and all that, right? Because it is public. So I think everybody has a gauge on where you want to be in that regard. Let's see. Not sure if I'm good on time. Fran Robustelli. Never worked with Fran before. She was really a nice surprise, to tell you the truth, in all this. Really, really, really solid manager. She's managed in a lot of places. You'll see all of them in California, and you're thinking, what the heck? Why would somebody from California want to come here? There's a lot of people from California that want to come here, by the way. But she's from here. She's from this area. And she got her undergrad degree at USF in Tampa, and then followed her husband's career. He's from California, and so she went on the other side of the country and followed his career out there. She was not looking for a job when we reached out to her. You may say, why would you reach out to her, Renee? Well, we reach out to everybody. And we always know that there's somebody in somewhere, maybe California, who's from this area, who would be interested in coming back home and who has done some great things. And sure enough, here's Fran. She was very pleasantly surprised to get a call from us, and we reached out, and we had a conversation with her. Her husband took a look at it with her. They sat down and said, you know what? Yes. And so she's not applying for any other jobs. She said, if I don't go anywhere, I can stay right where I am and stay here for a long time. She's out in the Bay Area, stay here for a long time. I guess city of Oakland tried to get her, and she said, no way. You know, she likes some more, I forget how she described it, but she likes an organization where she can connect with people. Oakland is not necessarily that, it's huge. So she would stay right where she is. She said, if I don't get St. Pete Beach, that's okay. You know, I'm happy here. I'm not going, you know, I'm not looking for a job. But she did her homework. She did a lot of homework on this. And she is interested. When I talked to her about salary, she said, well, I'll tell you, I'm making a lot more than probably they can pay, which I knew that. It's California. But she said, I will be interested in coming. She said, but I think the lowest I could go is $250 because of the cost of living in St. Pete Beach. And I said, okay. I said, will you just stay open to the fact that there's a package that goes with this and that somehow, you know, we can work out the details and get a package that's acceptable to you? She said, by all means. But we had an excellent conversation. I'm just telling you, she's solid. I was thrilled to have her in this pool. And again, I don't want to highlight her other than she's on the other side of the world, and you may be looking like, what the heck, Renee, you know? But I'm just telling you, she's definitely worth having a look at and having a conversation with. She's very bright. I don't think there's anything that could come up that she can't handle and she can't tackle. And again, just a real personable person, a very likable person. And I highly encourage you to talk with her as well as the other candidates. I'm just looking to see if there's anything else that I can share with you. I did ask all candidates, there's a question I have, it's a mile long, but I do ask, is there anything in your background that might be considered controversial or maybe just warrants further explanation on your part? And then I give examples, right? And I say personal examples would be things like DUIs or criminal convictions or what have you. Because if we have a DUI in college 25 years ago, okay. But if we have a DUI every month for the last 3 months, we have a different problem, so we need to know that. But also, on a professional level, I ask, has there been any allegations of, and again, I say this is an example, any allegations of sexual harassment, hostile work environment, ever been fired, ever been forced to resign, ever been the subject of disciplinary action or proposed discipline? I mean, I give them the gamut, you know, because I want them to know what I'm asking, you know. I want them to tell me up front. I'm going to do my backgrounds. I'm going to do my research. I'm going to do Nexus, newspaper articles, and all this. I'm going to find out what I need to find out. But I would rather hear from them what the rest of the story is if something is out there. And to tell you the truth, people are very honest with me because they do tell me about that DUI back 25 years ago at college, you know. And but anyway, I had that conversation with them. And I even included any EEOC complaints that went through the proper channels and were vetted and then resulted in any disciplinary action. For the most part, you know, I expect people in this role who have been in this career to have some EEOC complaints because they happen. My question is, did you do the right thing, right? And did you do something wrong? You know, was it vetted properly and what have you? So I don't have any concerns about any of these candidates. She did mention that about 6 months ago, I think, don't quote me on that, but it's been a little while, that she did, I'm going to say I forget how she worded it, but she fired the police chief. And then she shared with me some things about that I'm not at liberty to share publicly right now, that I totally get it. But that said, there was nothing, and she said, I'm totally comfortable with the decision, you know, and then of course that person has filed some kind of EEOC complaint about the firing or something like that. But she said, you know, I made the decision, it was the right decision, I stand by the decision, I'm not second guessing the decision, and everything is good. But that, in my opinion, is not, she's not looking for a job because of that. Apparently the city that she's in has a history of a lot of racial unrest going back to the 50s, and this has all become part of that, if you will. But again, you know, it's 6 months removed now, and she's very comfortable with that. But I just want to let you know I've asked everybody that question, and you know, at some level, if they've said yes, you know, there was an EEOC complaint because I fired someone, and you know, they were mad, and it went through the channels, and it wasn't founded, you know, and nothing came of it. So I'm looking for, again, patterns here of behavior for people whenever I'm looking in these folks' background. So that's it. I think what we have here is we have 5 candidates that are really different from one another. They come at this differently. What I did emphasize with candidates, so you know, is that I was told by all of you individually in our individual phone calls that there were certain things that you were concerned about as far as the next city manager goes. You wanted someone who was going to come and stay here, not come and go. You wanted someone that could connect with the community, not just with developers or the business side of things here, but the residents that are here. And that, you know, you wanted to see things get better as far as the organization itself is concerned. That, you know, you have some challenges as a city, as does everyone, but, you know, you want the right person to come in and fit. And I really think for your city, and I think you guys probably expressed this to me, fit is a really big deal. You can get someone who knows the job hands down, left and right, you know, and is so good at it. But if nobody feels comfortable around them, or if you can't work with them as a team member, right, and they can't work well with the staff here, then it doesn't matter how good they are, how smart they are, what they do. It's got to be someone to actually connect with all of you. And that was an overarching message that I got from a lot of you. So I'm going to take a swig of water here and give you a chance to ask me any questions, any follow-ups, any concerns. I will tell you that, again, we have some yardage to go here. We're not at the end game. The plan is to bring candidates in for interviews, and we have an assortment of, I'll say, events for that process. One would include, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I'll go ahead and throw this out. One would include that candidates sitting down with each one of you individually. So you can have a one-on-one conversation with them. It's always different when you're in the room with a person and having dialogue with them. But also, in addition to the one-on-ones, there would be a group interview where, like in this room, in a public forum, where people could come and they stand up here and you interview them, you ask them questions, and have it, you know, see how they respond, see how they handle tough questions on the spot, right? Also, I would encourage, and I think I've talked with staff about this, what I would call a meet and greet. It doesn't have to be very formal. You can have it here at Town Hall, at City Hall if you want, but this would be a chance for everyone to come, right? For the community members to come, for staff to come, so it should be after hours, so staff can come and mingle with candidates. So you have staff, you have community members, you have residents, you have business, you have chamber folks, you have everybody who is interested in the city manager be able to come and just interact in an informal setting with the candidates and kind of just have conversation with them, right? And get a sense of who they are and what they bring. And then in addition to that, we'd like them to do a tour. We used to do guided tours of the city prior to or during their interviews so they could go around and see things that are important and may come up in your discussions or in your interviews. What we suggest now is a self-guided tour. We give them points of interest to go and look at, but we found that when they wander around on their own, they love doing that. They learn a whole lot more, and they're able to interact with different things and see different things and learn different things. So we definitely want them to do that too. We'd also, again, this is for you to decide later, I'm just throwing this out. We also typically have what I call a Q&A session with department directors. That means department directors are all in one big room, one big conference room, and we bring the candidate in one at a time. It's not an interview. The directors are not picking their boss. They don't hire the city manager, you do. but it gives them a chance to interact with these candidates, and it's a two-way street. The candidates get to see the bench, they get to understand, you know, the department directors learn a little bit about them, see what team they're getting here, and kind of understand the role, because we are trying to sell candidates on you as much as as much as the other way around, right? We're trying to help them see what they're getting into to make sure they not only want it, but they're prepared to do it, and they have a good gauge on it, because we want to set them up for success coming in here. This part of the process starts their experience with the city, and we want to make sure that's a good city. So I know that was a lot to throw out there, and we need to talk about that after we talk about candidates, but my purpose of sharing that is we're not at the end yet. We still have some work to do as far as this process, rolling it out, trying to get a consensus on the same candidate, which is always a challenge, but we'll get there. Doing references, doing background checks, and even some of the concerns that you may have about some of these candidates that you might express today to me. You know, I'm going to be making notes of those things, because if you move them forward and interview them, I'm going to want to ask references specifically about those issues, right? So we've got more going on behind the scenes here than just having interviews and just picking a name. Okay, we're still doing a lot of work behind the scenes for you. So I'm really going to take a breath now and drink some water. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Renee. Any questions, comments?
I've got a few, unless you want to go first, Mayor.
By all means, go ahead.
All righty. So do we have an idea, I know I could look it up, what our current city manager makes that range? Or the one that was previous to?
The previous one, I don't have all the details of his package. I think there was a few elements to that, you know, we would probably want to consider going forward. However, I think someone told me that benefits and everything, the package was somewhere between $225 and $250.
Okay.
But I don't have a base salary out of that.
Did all five agree that they would come in for the commission hearing, the public hearing, meet and greets possibly, and then department head meetings? That's a lot of travel.
It is, it's going to be all done in about a 2 or 3 day period, all rolled into there. I think you may have been notified of just what your time commitments are on those 2 days. So you won't be involved in everything going on, but there'll be a lot going on. I think if somebody has to hang out somewhere for a while with an interview process, St. Pete Beach is a place that they probably want to be doing that. So the only challenge we do have is I'll say it's spring break. I mean, spring break is about 3 months now. You know, and bringing people in, we're going to have to work really hard. And staff has been helping me with that already, about just, you know, finding lodging for people during the time where everything is sold out.
And my last question, and I hope this doesn't come out wrong, were you the firm that produced Mr. Reyes, our previous manager?
No. Okay. I was not. I know of him. I've probably talked to him maybe a handful of times in my 25 years. I know kind of his background. I know him from the other side of the state. I actually worked closely with his wife, who was deputy city manager over there, because I did the Miami Beach city manager twice over a 12-year period. And the second time I did it, she was the deputy and my point of contact. So I know more of her as just a professional colleague. And I remember her saying her husband was in city management, but I never put it together. So I know more about where he's from, and kind of his experience and his, I guess, time on the other side of the state.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Questions, comments?
I've got a couple questions. You touched on a couple of these individuals as far as their willingness to live specifically in St. Pete Beach. The other candidates, have you talked about where they would plan on living?
Yes. Just so you know, we thought it was 10-mile radius from City Hall for some reason, but we understand it's 10-mile radius from the city that the city manager can live. All of these candidates have said, and I typically find this with city manager candidates, they want to live in St. Pete Beach because, I mean, it's St. Pete Beach, but that's not their reasoning. It's because, you know, it's hard to be involved in decisions here and carry out directives from this board and then go across the bridge, and live somewhere else and not have to live by the rules, and the ordinances here. So even though that parameter is there for them, even if you had no residency requirement, most any candidate I would bring you would say, I'm going to live in the city that I'm responsible for managing.
Okay.
And in this case, the challenge is the cost, right, from one side of the bridge to the other. But again, they know that, and they've done their research on that.
Okay. And my other question, could you clarify which ones you have not met in person?
I have not met Micah Maxwell and Fran Robustelli.
Okay, and then one other question I had, and I may have missed it, but I didn't have a compensation that Jim was ideally looking for.
Jim Harriet?
Yeah.
I wrote down 225.
225, I believe, is where he landed. Yes, he currently is, but he currently is around 190, I believe. So he wanted to be, and I think he had done his research, and he said that he perceived the range to be somewhere between 220 and 250 for this job, and that he would need to be at least at 220 to consider it. Which I do think, by the way, if it's any help to you, I think that's a competitive salary for this job. Again, I'm not sure where your last manager, what the package all included and what have you. But that's, something that we would look at, that I'm sure they've probably looked at, probably have a copy of the contract already.
Okay, I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Out of the 80-some other applicants that you had, and you have these 5 who you think are the best candidates for us, did you have an easy second tier 5, or did you have like a 2 or 3 that you were like, oh man, we're really tempted to put these in, but maybe not? Or was it very much just man, these are the ones and the rest of them are so different that it's,
That's such a good question, Councilmember. Excuse me, there were candidates that I looked at that I would have put in here except for some recent past events that I just felt like would be a difficult sell. I just didn't do that to them, and I didn't do that to you. I feel like there was not an easily identifiable tier 2 in that group, because there were a lot of people in that group I did not know. Mm-hmm. But what I did see was there were a lot of candidates that had smaller town experience, which is okay, but you're small as far as the number of residents, but you're not small. You're in the thick of it. And so while I suppose they're probably very good managers and could probably be a good manager here, I just felt like the connection wasn't there. Some of them were places, and nothing against Utah or Kansas or, nothing against that, but if their whole career was in that particular state, I just felt like, I felt like it was a bit of a jump. You know what I mean? I felt like these folks had been in enough places to know how to acclimate to a completely different place. Some of them have Florida experience, which is important to us too. But also, they've all kind of proven that they can adapt and can be effective. I wasn't sure about others. I would have to literally dig down pretty hard, and we can always do that, and probably interview a good, 25 more people to find out some rock stars in there. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you.
Commissioner. Thank you.
Yeah.
Betty, questions, comments? I do not have any either.
You do not either.
Okay.
I got one more question. So Of these 94 people, how many did you interview?
I'm going to say 10 to 12 because that's
Okay.
usually how many it ends up being. I think I probably looked at least that many, and some of them, so we put in our proposal that we do Nexus newspaper articles and whatever we do, social media searches, whatever we do now, backgrounds and what have you. The truth is, before we start talking to anybody, we do those too, because we need to know if something's out there and they're not telling us, right? So we put in our proposal that we do it at a certain point when we're recommending candidates. We do it on the front end. So I may have talked to some people or maybe put them over in this column to talk to them and then taken them out. So I don't have an exact number on that.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. So with that said, Mayor, I think the goal is to move forward, and we're going to move forward fast. I will tell you, first of all, I just want to thank everybody here and tell you what a fantastic job the city has done. Because when I called in December and said we're starting this search, staff said, no, hold on. There's some things going on we got to take care of first. And I just commend you for what you've done here. And I am able to share this with candidates. You know, none of them were talking about anything about the city other than I've done my homework and it looks like a great opportunity. So congratulations as a board on moving forward and getting to this point. That said, we also, even though we had to pause for a little bit, we kind of revved up a little bit because we wanted to get ahead of others in and around the area that are also looking for managers. And I can tell you, I'm known for people trying to take my candidates after I make a presentation. So I'm going to go call these people as soon as I get out of here. It's really unfortunate, but I mean, transparency is what it is and you need it, and these meetings are essential. But I have had candidates to tell me that after I present them somewhere, their phone starts ringing off the hook. So I don't think we're going to lose anybody to anybody else. I think we're solid. I think the fact that we've already got these dates, and again, Mr. Saunders and your staff for pushing us on getting these dates down made that happen, because we're going to move quickly as far as timelines for city manager searches. We are 2 weeks out maybe to do this, and that's just the right amount of time. It doesn't leave candidates hanging out there and exposed where they are, right, or in the papers or what have you, and it keeps them engaged, and we get there quickly so that we don't lose anybody. So I commend all of you for doing that. But I will be back here in a couple of weeks. I'll send you some suggested questions for the interviews. That doesn't mean you have to use my questions, but they're really good. And it does mean that at least you have something that you can look at and come up with a standard set of questions. What I'm going to ask you to do, first round interviews, is ask all the same questions to everybody. And I know you're just like, oh no, they're so different. I want to know different things. The way the questions are written, they're open-ended. So you're going to get the answers you want from all the candidates. And then at the end of the interview with a particular candidate, if you still have something lingering there about that, I'm going to encourage you to ask that question at the end. I don't want them leaving an interview, either one-on-one or public interview, and you still don't have answers that you need from that candidate or from me. Okay? My job is to make sure you're as informed as you can be about everything that's going on. So we will do some suggested questions. We'll have some ranking and rating sheets just to help you kind of look at soft skills and even rank candidates as they go forward. Because it's hard sometimes with 5 of them. You're like, well, I can't remember who was what. The sheets that we give you will help you with all of that. And we also will have the schedule in there so you know what's going on with everybody else and where everybody is at a certain time. And I have no idea why my phone is just dinging like no tomorrow. I could just chunk it right now. So I apologize for that. But anyway, we have a lot to do, and I'm working closely with Wayne and staff to make all that happen.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's very nice to meet all of you. I'll see you soon.
All right.
Thank you.
Unless we have anything else for this meeting? In that case, thank you, Renee. We are adjourned.